All right. We are connected. Twitch is still sending. Just wait a minute. Ciao, Julia. Got my 3 monitors set up. All right, I think we're connected now. Let's see. All right. Let's start this up. Tuning in now. Hello, Facebook. Hello, Twitch. Hello, YouTube. Paul here. Just showing you guys a little clip. This is a little bit of what the Image Tapes Volume 1 sounds like, in case you didn't know. I'll play some more of that later. Welcome back. Hello to everybody tuning in. Paul here from Savoir. Every Wednesday we are breaking down some of our songs and our sessions and production techniques and just talking basically everything about the process behind these songs and these albums, which has been really fun, and it's awesome that you guys have been tuning in. Again, I've said it before, but if you have any questions at all for the process, about the songs, about the writing, just let me know. I got my chat window up over here. I got my Pro Tools camera, that stuff. But yeah, just let me know. Drop a question in the chat, and I will definitely get to it. But today, like I said, we're going to be breaking down Image Tapes Volume 1, which... for those of you that don't know, it's an instrumental album that we put out back in April. And it's a really interesting series, and I'm really, really happy that I finally got it out and finished it. Because it's different. It's different than all the other Savoir records, but in a way, it's a parallel to those records. It's an accompaniment. So it's really, really nice to have that out now, and it's on Spotify. And... as you can see here, I'm going to dive into sort of the very origins of it. For those of you that have followed our music, it started all as an experiment. Savoir started as an experiment that Deidre Muro and I got together, created all these different soundscapes, and we released an EP called The Adventures of Mr. P. And that's how the project began. Now, that was 10 years ago, which is a long time ago to think about it. But... what was really cool is that same... Sean, I'll get to that in a little bit for sure. Sean Grimes asked, I'd like to know if the band name has a particular story you can share. Well, in fact, I can tell the story really quick because it started in this experimentation phase right here. The first time Deidre and I ever wrote together, we wrote this really interesting ambient song, actually. Let's strangely enough, the first thing we ever wrote is very similar to the image tape stuff. And we had to put it up on MySpace. Back then, we just didn't know how to share music other than MySpace. Now there's Dropbox, there's WeTransfer, but in 2007, we just didn't really know. So we're like, we have to create a MySpace, we have to make a band name. And since we had sang in French that day, I remember Deidre was like, well, we were like, what's important to us? And I said, well, to know love, which I actually did. It's bad French, but savoir, to know, and adore, to love. Savoir, adore. And it's sort of a play on savoir faire, and it just stuck. And we came up with the name very quick, but then over time we realized how much that connected to what we were doing, which was sort of tapping into, my friend did just point out that it was longer than 10 years ago. It's true. It's 13 years ago, which is crazy. But yeah, that's how the name came about. And then it sort of inspired a lot of where we went from there. But it, kind of started in this whole spirit of experimentation. So during this process, again, if you're just joining us, because I think some people are joining on Twitch now, I am, every Wednesday we are breaking down albums, songs, the sessions themselves, as you can see, the Pro Tools, the recording techniques, production. So this week we are talking about Image Tapes Volume 1, which is our new instrumental album. And yeah, basically over the years, we were collecting just, I usually start these songs with soundscapes, with instrumental stuff. And so I was collecting tons and tons of what we were calling nuggets. And, this is just a quick little window into, the process of how this all goes. But it's a lot. And I think any band, any producer, any artist would agree. It's like you write, I think most people I know at least, you write so much more than you actually present. You write and you record a lot of ideas. And so for like even LP3, which was The Love That Remains, you can see here, it was a huge folder of different ideas. And here I have like a whole entire folder just of instrumental ideas. New, long. I mean, look at this. Long, first priority, for segues, short, atlas idea, savoir idea. And what happened around this time is I realized some of these instrumental nuggets, some of these instrumental pieces were really beautiful, and they didn't necessarily develop into a song, into a sort of finished 4-minute thing that we would put on a record, but they were very emotive, they told a story, and they deserved to be heard. And so around that time in 2015, I decided, okay, I'm going to take these instrumental ideas and focus them into something. And in a way, they're cinematic. So I thought about this idea of like, well, what about writing and putting this together as if it was a score for a movie that just doesn't exist yet? And that concept became Image Tapes. And then, yes, it took me 4-5 years to finally put it out. But that was part of the process too. It was very much just a fun sort of artistic thing to work on while I was working on the albums. But yeah, over the years, and then finally, you can see right here, this is the final track listing. It's 25 songs, all under 2 minutes. And that's Image Tapes Volume 1. And I'm already working on the next stage, but I wanted to kind of give you guys a little breakdown of how it all came together because it was really fun. I'm just getting comments. Cool. Hi, everybody, if you're just joining in. So yeah, Image Tapes. Like I said, it was a ton of instrumental ideas. So there were probably 203 different ideas floating around. Some of them were just not very good. Some of them were super experimental or noisy. Some of them were, really thought out and performed things. This was one of the first, finished ideas folder. I'm not sure when I created this, but I could probably see. But you see some of these ideas from 2017, 2018. And there were just different ideas like this. Let's see what this sounds like. Oh, sorry, that's a different thing. But yeah, like chime intro. This was just a cool chime thing that I had chopped up. Beautiful fade. And this one actually ended up becoming the beginning of the album. Negatives 1000. This did not make the album. 745 Sunrise. This did not make the album. pretty. Maybe it'll be on the next one. But yeah, basically every time that I started a song, whether that was working on something specifically for Savoir or just experimenting, if it felt good, I would put in this little folder. And then eventually I had so many ideas, but I narrowed it down to these finished ideas. And I started combining them in this giant session here, which I called the primer master for some reason. But as you can see, it's basically all these folders. And I was just playing around with the idea of how everything would connect. And as you can see, that was something, this beautiful fade track was the first one. And that was really important to me because I wanted it to sort of feel like this 20-minute journey through different scenes, different snapshots. So that was like the sort of, this is where everything was combined. But I'm going to open some of these sessions now to show you sort of the process in terms of how I usually would write these things. So let me just open session breakdowns. So yeah, this one, for example, is really fun. I'll save that. And again, if you guys have any questions at all about this process and about the recording techniques, just drop a comment right over here. I got it all on my computer. So this was a track that I actually, again, started thinking maybe this would become a Savoir Adore song for an album with the words and all that stuff. I'll just play it a little bit. Basis, but for some reason it just never wanted to become a song with lyrics. It was this, and I remember putting this in the folder for a potential image shapes thing, and it really became, something lovely and sort of cinematic and mood setting, like I could see that being a car driving off into the sunset or some sort of romantic scene, and I just kind of meditated on that idea for a long time. Thank you for liking it. That's awesome. So yeah, this song was really cool because, again, as you can see, these aren't huge sessions. For the most part, most of these sketches, because they feel like sketches, but they're still complete. They're, usually 5 or 6 elements tops. So in this one, it all started with this guitar part. And also, I've said this in some of the previous streams, but I almost always start with a tone or some sort of ostinato pedal tone, which what that means, it's like usually something repetitive that's like on a single note or in a single key. So for this, I remember starting with a couple of Roland Juno patches, which it's my trusty keyboard over here that I use on everything. And I'll play that for you. It's this. And the secret there is this bad boy. Basically, that's just probably, a very simple Juno patch, but it's run through this ZVEX pedal called the Lo-Fi Junkie, and it's incredible. It basically turns any sound into it sounds like an old warped VHS player or something. It's pretty incredible. I use it sometimes on guitar. It's pretty unruly, so it's kind of hard to put on your pedal board and use in a live show, but I usually keep it on the Juno over here. And if I want something super lo-fi, I'll usually either put it on one side or on both if I really want to smash it. But as you can tell here, this was a Juno pad layered with this guy. And to me, that's instantly inspiring. There's this warble, and I'll take off. There's actually a side chain, but I'll take that off. There's a lower note. So I remember starting with that pad and then thinking, okay, well, I bet some chords against that would be really beautiful. So I ended up playing this guitar part. Actually, that's not, as you can tell, I'm not the best at labeling. It was this guitar. always double everything, so it's these two. Really quick, because people have talked about this before. That guitar was through a Vox AC30, and then here's my little pedal board, which maybe you can see, sort of. Oh my god, so a funny way of doing this, sorry. But it's really a combination of this diamond vibrato. It's a deluxe Memory Man, old school Memory Man, and Boss RV5. And basically that is almost a lot of these vibey guitar parts that I put in Savoir stuff, especially this instrumental stuff. It's almost always this combination of a little bit of vibrato, a chorused delay with a pretty long feedback, and then a modulated reverb. For me, that's just instant vibe, so you can hear it again. So basically that against the Juno pad, that's the basis of the tune. Hello, everyone that is tuning in on Twitch. Hello, hello. Any questions at all? YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, just let me know. I am here. I've got the chat window open. So basically after that, and this was the process for a lot of these image tapes and how I write Savoir songs in general. So it's usually a sound that's inspiring, then a guitar part or a piano part. And then after that, it's just layering. And for this, I really like the idea of doing like a super almost synth wavy smashed kind of thing. So I have just an MPC, in this case it's a 909 kick, and I'll show you later, a lot of this stuff is heavily processed, and that's why it has this sort of like VHS cassette feel. But this is the beat basically, and as you can tell here, it's just a couple of, it's a 909 kick. This is I basically on the recording of the last record, my friend Steve, we recorded all the drums up in Montreal. My friend Steven Chouinard, who is in this band La Couleur, amazing band. We did a really great recording session, and I ended up loving his snare. Is just the best sounding snare. So that's this Montreal snare here, and then these are actually just some little cut up. I think they were splice loops, to be honest. So nice little shaker thing, and that is super duper processed. And actually, I'll show you that right now, because that's fun. Part of this process, I wanted all these things to feel like cassettes, obviously with the image tapes connotation. I wanted it to feel like a cassette, but not so lo-fi that it sounded like trashy, you know? So for me, just might as well just open all these up so you can see them. This is, for all you producer folks out there, this is the signal chain for this master bus, which is kind of, it's beastly. I don't know why I'm doing it like this. There's probably a better way of doing this, but yeah, as you can tell, there's a lot going on. Okay, but each of these things do add something very specific, and I'll sort of back up through them because I really wanted it to feel special. And so, you know, without all this stuff, check it out. Boring. Super boring. Well, not boring. It just sounds kind of okay and pretty and very clean and sterile. And so for me, the first thing I added was just a little bit of this API 2500 up here, which is a nice bus compressor, hitting it pretty hard. And then I can't recommend this plugin more, Wow Control by Goodhertz. It's basically just like a super customizable tape and saturation machine. So you turn it on and check it out. I'm not using a ton of this, but see, it's cleaner without it. With it, I'm adding a little bit of modulation, which means that the pitch of the notes is going up and down over time. So this actually creates, this emulates old tape machines because they weren't perfect, you know. And when you do a Varispeed thing and you move the speed of the tape, there's actually a little bit of warble. And cassettes have that especially because as cassettes get damaged, they impart more of that color. And so this, I'm doing this in this mode, but you can get it, you can make it, you can really trash something with it. But it's a $50 plugin that's just unbelievable. So I add that, then I add a little bit more tape saturation here, the J37. Then I start limiting a little bit because I want it to get squashed, because that's also part of what makes a cassette sound like a cassette, is that it's compressed to death. So that's McDSP limiter, a little waves, C4 also smashed to death. Again, this is not like mixing 101 at all. This is like purely for effect. See here, now it's smashed. Now, some weird low mids, EQ them out, limit a little bit more. And now, real kicker, filter. And then a limiter as well. And that's the final product. And actually, I'm leaving something out, but don't be afraid to get creative on your master bus, I guess is my point, especially if there's something creative that you want to convey. I forgot I need this side chain very much, so it should sound like this. Oh, these are more acoustic guitars down here. The Hoon Baboon asked, you make the samples with VTIs or record them? For the most part, the samples are recorded. I don't know if it's just like I'm getting a little older. I'm a little bit of a dinosaur. I grew up recording on tape machines, and I still, even as digitally centered as my workflow is, I still like recording real audio. As you can tell here, it's entirely real audio. So these samples, for the most part, everything is recorded. This acoustic guitar, this drum, even the drums. This snare drum here was recorded in Montreal, like with friends. That's a real snare. Kick drum. The kick drum is a sample from an old 909 machine, and then some of the stuff, a couple things from Splice, like this. This shaker is a Splice sample that I cut up. But yeah, for the most part, and then occasionally I'll use virtual instruments, but I just tend, can't see it now, but there's my trusty Juno in the corner. There's just something so special about a Juno. Like, if any young producer, I would be like, buy yourself a synth so that you have an instrument away from your computer to write and feel inspired by. And it's not even, the sound of the Juno is incredible, but then also the fact that you can just walk over to an instrument and actually physically play it. It'll get your juices flowing. I really believe that. So yeah, most of the samples are all recorded throughout this. And that's pretty much the entire track. I think there's some electric guitar here. Yeah. So yeah, all the harmony motion is there. And then with the Juno. Oh, there's another little Juno patch here that's really pretty. There's some little like stabby things. And then I did some big Juno hits here that are fun. Yeah, unfortunately, Mundaloo says it's mega expensive. I think you're talking about the Juno, right? Yeah, unfortunately, the Juno is not cheap. It used to be. This is the hard thing with especially vintage instruments. It's like year to year, these things vary so much. A Juno used to be $500. And now in the last 5 years, it went from like $500 to like $2,000. And it's a bummer because I wish more people could have a synth like that at home. Like, I bought it when it was much cheaper than it is now. But even then, there are many, many, many synths that are much cheaper. So like, you can buy a Behringer for $200-300, and then you'll have your own synthesizer at home that's, has audio. And I think having an instrument like that is great. Captain Gore asked about singing. So if you're just tuning in, again, we're breaking down Image Tapes, which is our last record, which is actually completely instrumental with the exception of some spoken word dialogue, but there's no singing at all on it. So this is a song called Drive from that record I just talked about. Again, pretty cool, vibey, like acoustic, almost like in a, it's like an Americana Bruce Springsteen thing, but then filtered through a VHS cassette. And that's that, And if you want to hear that whole song, pop up on our Spotify and listen to the whole album. I'm going to open another session now, sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum from this record. For the most part, there were sort of like noise experiments. There was a few guitar tracks with guitar motifs. And then the song that sort of ended up being like the center focus of the whole, and it ended up being like the single, for lack of a better term, because it's an instrumental record of, 1 minute songs. There's not a ton of, it's funny questions. It's not a ton of like, commercial potential, but who cares? What's beautiful about Spotify actually is that there are these little pockets, communities, these niche playlists. And so there's a place for this instrumental music, and people really have reacted great to it. But yeah, it's there's no singing. Long version of the answer. But yeah, this is called this was image number 4. I'll play a little bit of it. That's a little clip of it. That's pretty much half the song because it's pretty short. But yeah, this image number 4 kind of ended up being almost like a single or something that we pushed a little bit with the record. And it's sort of, I would say, there's a handful of songs on the record that are a little bit more like classical suites. Like you could see that kind of in the realm of like the Olafur Arnalds world or Max Richter. And those guys were huge inspiration for a lot of these ideas, especially the ones that are that feel a little bit more like new classical, But this was also, a similar writing process in that it was just an experiment. It was just about finding a really cool sound and then experimenting with it. And the session is pretty simple too. And it was really, a lot of this was centered around, I don't know, if you're ever looking for a very inspirational sample, or like a sampler piano based, this Spitfire has something called a felt piano, and this is a completely free plugin, which is also so amazing. I've definitely gone on to support that and buy some of their other products, but I just couldn't believe that they gave this for free. And I'll play it for you. Let's get my sustain pedal from underneath the table. It's an incredibly rich and well recorded piano, and it's called a felt piano because essentially you put extra felt behind the hammers of the piano, and it creates this really soft, emotive feel. So that's, as you can tell, I'm just playing it. It's a beautiful, truly beautiful piano sample. So I'd highly recommend it. And I remember as soon as I pulled this up, this was just like me experimenting with the sample, and I just liked, this, if you can tell, there's a lot of rich overtones in the harmony, especially when you hold down the pedal. So I'm holding down a sustain pedal now. You can just hear, it's gorgeous, it's like putting your head down on a piano or something. To me at least, it's instantly emotive. So it plays in a contact instrument, which is native instruments, but the sample itself is on Spitfire. And again, this is a free piano, so Not to give away all my secrets, but go get it. It's beautiful. And you'll see the Spitfire Audio is just one of the best audio companies out there. So it started with this piano motif. Whoops. Haven't played it in a minute. Oh, yeah. There it is. So that's the main piano motif, and as you can see, it's all recorded in MIDI. So this one actually was more, because I have a piano here at home, but it goes out of tune, so I don't record it as much. But that was the motif, and it really started with that, and then I wanted to sort of layer on top of it, and that's where I think a little bit more of the experimentation came. And so, yeah, there were a few things. There's this cool kinetic metal. This is another Native Instruments thing. I love this plugin. This plugin is great for like an instant weird atmosphere. So I wanted that. Whenever there's something pretty, I want to kind of, I want to contrast that. It's all about counterpoint. So I put that over there, and then there was this beautiful. I think this is, yeah. This is another cool Spitfire Labs Peel guitar, which I believe is another one of they call it the Labs because they're free or really cheap. I forgot exactly, but this Peel guitar is so cool, and I did a bunch of damage to it, but it's like this. So it's just a really cool like plucked guitar, and then I added some reverb and again that really cool tape plugin. See that? So that gives, again, that's called modulation, where basically the pitch is getting shifted over time, and you can adjust everything in this plugin. It's so cool. This is, it's 0.5 hertz speed waveform, which is, a long waveform, slow, 15% shape, and then I'm not even doing that much else to it. But it just gives that beautiful, and against the piano, it's beautiful. And the kinetic metal. And then in a lot of these, another one of the motifs is noise. I love lo-fi music. I love noise. I think too much nowadays music is there's this hyper focus on making everything too clean and too perfect. I think it's partially because I started writing music, started Savoir in the mid 2000s, where there were all these bands that were like really noisy lo-fi rock bands, like Broken Social Scene. Like you listen to some of the early Broken Social Scene now, and it's like it's pretty lo-fi, but so powerful. And the same thing goes for like Arcade Fire, and just a lot of the indie bands of that era. So for me, I wanted noise, and I liked, there was just a sample of some vinyl from Sound Iron, and I actually have some tuning radio samples that I made. These are actually from me back in the day. Mist LOL asks, where can I get that guitar plugin? Again, that's Spitfire Audio. So just check out Spitfire Audio, and it's under the Labs category. Super cool, unique instruments, and the best part is a lot of them are free, as long as you have Contact, which is this Native Instruments player. But I think a lot of people have that. It's definitely worth having. So yeah, I was building the noise, and then the middle section here was really fun because I needed a B section. It's something I added later. So it's that guitar again, this piano, just some simple string patches that are just, I really love in the string ensemble, there is a harmonics setting. Because a lot of the, recording strings is really hard. I know some people are really, really good at it, and Spitfire actually has some great samples, but it's expensive. So I would recommend using the harmonics setting on the string ensemble. And that's just, what comes with Native Instruments. It's much more textural. It sounds like a violin waking up. It's great. It's especially great for like long-held ostinato tones like that, and that's what happens there. Oh, I forgot. I think there's one more cool. Yeah, there's this. Oh, that's later. Never mind. So yeah, again, I wanted to make some cool noise here. So, and this is something I do on the Savoir records all the time when I want to create some sort of a lo-fi atmosphere that still feels musical. And then you told me that it doesn't. I shouldn't play too much of that. It's literally me talking gibberish. And then you told me that. Yeah, so I'm not going to play any more of that because I don't even know what I said. But then I just drench it in reverb, this revibe plugin I love, just like a natural studio sound. A ton of Echo Boy with feedback so that it can swell up a little bit. And then EQ, I think I just filter out the highs. Yeah, I basically just do a filter, a little telephone filter. So then that's this. That's just me talking. Yeah. So that was like layer 1, and then I ended up wanted some more like noise machine stuff. So I ended up using the Prophet, which you can see here. Prophet 08. Again, amazing synth. I will say, again, I have a number of synth, and this is just bought them over the years. I always say you don't need a lot. I think if you have 1 synth, 2 synths, it's really all you need. It's nice to collect stuff, but also like it's kind of wasteful and unnecessary, And I think the problem with a lot of producers and musicians nowadays, sorry guys, the train is coming by. I should really like build, and I don't know if you can see this. I live next to a train track. So once an hour, a giant freight train comes by, and in the summer when the windows are open, it's not fun. But anyway, so hopefully that's not too loud. Now it's blowing its horn. Great. Come on, train. Anyway, gosh, I don't even know what I was saying now. But yeah, I just think it's important I think a lot of people buy too much and then don't even learn it. If you buy 1 synth and just really, really get comfortable with it, it's so much more worthwhile. And for me, I would say I mostly just use 2. I use the Prophet 08, which is Dave Smith, and then I use the Roland Juno, which I talked about before too. The Prophet is great because you can make really weird modern sounds, and that's what I ended up doing here. I don't know how well you can hear this because this train coming by, but I essentially just did a long, a noise oscillator with a really long release. So that's basically like white noise. Because you can really, you can, with any synth, you can just make it sound like noise, usually. And then I'm messing with the filter with a really high resonance so that it kind of sounds like a radio tuning. As you can see. So that was fun because that was all actually like tactile, physically produced on the synth. And so I did a few layers of that, and it just created a nice sort of like, almost like a lo-fi sci-fi, a low sci-fi soundscape. So this is what that all sounds like together with the noise. Yeah. So again, that just adds a little bit more of a. I like adding just a little bit of noise trash to most things, especially when the piano is so pretty. If it was just the piano on its own, I think I wouldn't find it as interesting. It. And I ended up doing that over the outro as well with some additional piano instruments and stuff. But that's pretty much. And again, this was fun because I have the same Spitfire piano, but with a Pan Man and some wow control. So you see, Pan Man basically moves the signal from left to right. If you're in stereo, I'm sure not everyone's in stereo all the time. I don't even know if this stream's in stereo. Should probably check that. Corey, do you know if it's in stereo? Anyway, so that's basically image number 4. again, those are sort of those key instruments that I found really inspirational, and I ended up using them quite a bit. I want to open one other session to show you because I really had fun with it. I believe it's in the master. Yeah, save that, I suppose. And again, if you have any questions at all, drop a comment. Let me know. We're going to be here every Wednesday doing these session breakdowns. It's a lot of fun to kind of go back into these sessions. This is relatively new, so it's actually fresh in my memory, but some of the older ones will be fun too. And again, this is talking about Image Tapes Volume 1, which is actually the last thing we released back in April. Totally instrumental album, a little experimental for us. So yeah, this is a fun one. This is actually something I can't stress enough how the process behind these albums, and this goes for all of our albums, there's kind of no formula. Like this, for example, a lot of these things I wrote 4 or 5 years ago, and then I didn't know what to do with them, and then it just all connected slowly over time in weird ways. I was actually just kind of I was performing this at like an art gallery space, and so I needed to finish it. And I remember when I was putting it all together, I thought, oh, it would be really nice to have sort of just an ethereal kind of bell thing after, because some of these tracks actually were in there and then I got rid of them. My friend Corey is Jazz McNerdy on Twitch helping me out with the stereo question. Yeah, it's true. If you're on headphones, highly recommend anyone listening, if you're super into the details of this, to listen on headphones or a good set of speakers, because then I think you'll get all the nuance of all these different sounds. So yeah, like I was saying, I was putting this together actually as a sequence for the first time, and I just thought, oh, I wish there was something with bells. And so I ended up writing this within this whole template session. And again, started the same. This is just one of my techniques, so I do it a lot, but starting with an ostinato from the Juno. I don't even know, I think that's a C. Very simple. And so over that, this is a really great, oh, again, another Spitfire Labs thing. All these sounds are just so beautiful. This is a mini harp. You see it has that beautiful, the slow attack. You can see the MIDI here. So this was literally me I wanted to create some sort of a moving texture over the Juno. I'm just playing random notes. I literally have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm playing random notes, but within an extended C major scale. So I think I'm only playing, I really like an F over C, so I'm playing C, E, F, A, and C, and that's it. So there's a little bit of tension there because some of those note values are really close. So again, this is the mini harp, but I'm also filtering it. See? You can have it sound even cleaner, but I didn't really like that high-end information, so I took out everything, I'm filtering it probably down to like, 500 or 600. So yeah. Jordan C. Miller asked on Facebook about the session breakdowns. Yeah, we've actually, this is the third one. We did Dreamers, Giants, and now this one. We took a break for a couple weeks. We felt it was right to take a break for a couple weeks with everything going on. So yeah, we've only done 3. This is the third. So if you like these, if you're digging it, please check it out on YouTube. They're all saving. I think they save to Facebook and Twitch as well. So you can jump back and watch them. But yeah, this is the third installment of the session breakdowns, but we'll be doing them every week from now on. And also on that note, if there is a song from our catalog that you really dig, please let us know and we'll put it on the list of things to do next, because, we're probably going to be home not playing shows for still a few more months. So we're going to keep doing these. So yeah, this was the mini harp filtered. And then after that, again, same process. Creating a unique soundscape that feels emotive. That's kind of how often I'll start. So to me, this immediately had a vibe. And in some ways, I could have stopped here. but I wanted some anchors. I wanted to feel more moved. So I ended up doing, again, the piano. It's almost the whole piece there, but that's ended up being called image number 7. And this one's really fun too, because I actually don't even have everything on that's supposed to be there. It's supposed to sound like this, even more compressed. The way I get that sound, and you probably hear, I don't know if you can hear every detail, but there's a little bit of a hiss right now because it's super, super duper compressed. But what I'm using is this really cool little tape mate plugin by Ithacus Audio. Now, I'm actually using 2 instances. Oh no, I'm actually using the audio degrade. Okay, so these are free plugins. There's all these free plugins online if you just do a little digging. This piano, for example. So I think this piano sample is beautiful no matter what. You hear that? You know, it's got a lot of... But for this one especially, because the chords, there was so much more space, I wanted to just slam it, give it a little movement. So on the instrument itself, this VHS tape, as you can see, you feel the warping? Ugh, it's so cool. Can't recommend this plugin enough, guys. And again, you just throw it into this one you actually have to throw into Reactor, but that comes with native instruments as well. It's great. This basically emulates VCRs. And you can see here, click on it. Oh, geez. Did I break it? I didn't break it. Oh yeah. So you can see all these different plugins. This was just the first preset, and I think I just tweaked it a little bit so there was more high end. But it's beautiful. You hear what it does? It saturates it, it modulates it, it does some cool like filtration stuff. And it compresses it so much. Brings out all the little details. So yeah, I ended up using that, and then the tape mate on the master bus as well. And I'll just show it to you a little bit again, the difference. This is without it, and I'll turn it on. That really completed the piece too, because again, I think it's fun. I think it's fun to I was gonna say it's fun to like damage things, but I don't know if it's necessarily damaging, but I think it's fun to manipulate and warp and sort of, trash up things that are very pretty, because that creates this really cool contrast, something beautiful that's then lo-fi or warped. And that kind of ended up being like the theme of image tapes. It's all these very like kind of lo-fi soundscapes, but mixed with classical motifs, piano, some harp, bells, stuff like that. I mean, this is the last song. Same exact thing. I think I ended up using, this was just like a celeste sample. So some of the songs are more like that. But yeah, and then, just to sort of wrap it up, I was going to say the funniest part about this process is just it took so long to decide when it was done. Because I think with albums, especially when you're collaborating with people, there's kind of a little bit more of an obvious endpoint in terms of like, okay, you got 12 songs and the concept is complete. There's a beginning and an end in some way. But for this, it was just, I was left to my own devices and like I'm no joke. This is 15 years of writing ideas. There's probably hundreds of files like this. And then finally, I was actually on tour earlier this year, and I remember just putting the sequence together, and I was in a motel in Oregon, and I just finally printed it, and I was just like, thank God, it's done. So yeah, it wasn't finished until I kind of did the final sequence and bounce out and tweaks on my laptop in a hotel somewhere, because that's recording. But yeah, I'll see if there's one more thing that I can go into. Yeah, actually, I'll open this one. This is another pretty piano one from the record. And again, guys, thank you so much for hanging out and tuning in. Gothic Media is back. Twitch, someone on Twitch has been here from the start. Yeah, it's not Saturday night yet. Saturday night, we'll be DJing. But yeah, again, if you are just tuning in, if you've had a good time, we're going to be here every Wednesday, 1 o'clock, breaking down these sessions, talking about recording techniques and the stories behind these albums and these songs. So yeah, I'll just touch on one more, and then I'll probably wrap it up, because a lot of the other songs are just, I could go through everything, but I don't need to. I think at some point that would get boring. So this one was a really simple, quick one. And again, it all started, I was sketching an idea for a potential Savoir track, but then it just fit more like this. So this was a cool, gosh, I don't even remember what sample this was. Oh, this is from a Poly 6. So this is one other synth that I have, the Korg Poly 6. It kind of naturally sounds a little bit more damaged. It's a older, a little bit, I don't want to say flimsy, because it's not flimsy, but it's not as full sounding as the Juno. But it was really a beautiful little, again, there's some nice motion going on, some modulation between the voices and the oscillators. And so I have these two. Yeah. This was a nice opening up a filter on the Poly 6. So after that, same exact thing. Cool ostinato synth, and then I recorded some piano over it. I'll show you guys the plugins. This one it ended up being called Lovers Far Away. And what was cool is at the time, my wife Feifa actually was, I think she was probably in the next room, and I just really wanted, for some reason, this song felt like it wanted a conversation over it. So I just told her to come over, and I was just talk to me. And so we ended up having a quick, weird little conversation. I actually need to put some reverb on it, because this I started a long time ago with a different plugin. Change, why not? So, yeah. So this was the last step. For me at least, made that song feel complete. And I ended up doing that on a couple other tracks too, because it's fun to have those sort of lo-fi, it's almost like lo-fi dialogue, just kind of selling that idea of a score. And that was it. That was Lovers Far Away. And over time, I just collected again, folder. This is the main, I'll show you. again, I'm not the most organized person, but image tapes became its own folder slowly but surely, and then more and more and more, there was lots of little layers, lots of things that just didn't make the record, which honestly, that's one of my tasks, I guess. One of my tasks for this summer is to just go through everything and sort of organize and see if there's anything left that I would use. But as you can see, a whole other folder just for first priority. And then within first priority, there's all this stuff and finished ideas. And eventually it got to the sequence template, which I showed you guys. And then eventually this, and then eventually Spotify and iTunes and everything all done. So yeah, this is the complete album. And I was going to say, that's the end of sort of the breakdown, but I'm just going to, if anyone wants to hang out and just vibe to the full record, I'm going to put up the full video. So you guys can hear it. It's only about 20 or so minutes long, but if you want to listen to it right now, feel free. There's a beautiful visual actually that went along with it that I used some found footage, some old paint, 16 millimeter stock footage, some of the environment up here in the Hudson Valley. So it's kind of a nice like full video for the entire thing. And I'll just hang out and listen to. And if you have any questions at all, if you have any ideas for other breakdowns we could do, we're also going to do live sessions in the future because I think that'll be fun and do a whole writing process. But yeah, I'm just going to put that on and hang out. If you have any questions, I'll be in the chat booth here on Twitch and Facebook and YouTube. And again, it's Paul for Savoir. We are doing this every Wednesday. Saturday night DJ sets at 8 p.m. Sunday morning, sort of chill ambient music to start your day at 9 a.m. And that's what we're doing now while we can't go out and play music. But the truth is we'll probably keep doing this because it's really fun. And it's nice to actually connect with you all out there too, because that's a huge part, I think, of what I miss about touring is actually, connecting with people. Think about that. So yeah, I'm going to put this on if you feel like hanging out. Any questions, just let me know. I got my chat window open over here. And thanks again for tuning in. It's really fun. And that was Image Tapes Volume 1. So if you want to listen, you can also check it out on Spotify and give us a follow. But here it is. And I'll be right back. Here comes image number 4. again, this is the whole image tapes visualizer, which is on YouTube as well. Just figured I'd play it all for you. This is my cat, Tommy. Any questions, just let me know. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep hanging out with my cat here, which is also totally fine. He really likes image tapes. Similar piano sample. That's some nice Juno through reverb. This is one of my favorites on too. It's called Opening Credits. All right, guys, and that's it. That's Image Tapes Volume One. Um, Thanks so much for tuning in. This was awesome. This was really a lot of fun. Any other questions, comments? Just drop it in the chat box, or hit us up on Instagram or any of these any of these sites. And we'll hopefully see you Saturday night for a DJ set. All right.